There is a solution for that is sponsored by VARC Solutions. VARC Solutions helps small businesses succeed by delivering expert QuickBooks bookkeeping, consulting, quick-base development, and integrated solutions. If you own a small to medium-sized business that uses QuickBooks or QuickBase, the experts at VARC Solutions can help. In business since 1999, with people who care and the knowledge and experience to solve your toughest problems. Visit varcsolutions.com for all your QuickBooks needs. Welcome back to another edition of There's a Solution for That, where we help small businesses succeed by discussing challenging business problems and best-in-class solutions. All right, welcome everybody back to the latest edition of There's a Solution for That. We, as always, have great topics to talk about and explore, and today is no exception to that. We've got a great guest today, Jeri Frank, who's the co-founder and CEO of Stratafolio, and we're going to be talking about the challenges and problems, if you will, within commercial property management, and then what are some of the solutions to that. And of course, Jeri, you came up with the solution. You and your co-founder came up with a solution to that problem, and we're going to talk about it. So, so Jeri, thanks for joining the show. Kind of tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us here. So my name is Jeri Frank, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Stratafolio. And my husband and I, Uriel Burles, is the other co-founder, and we founded Stratafolio because we were actually solving our own real estate need. We used to work in the corporate world, and we were doing a lot of things by spreadsheets, and we realized that was really not how we wanted to grow our real estate portfolio, and that really just became the catalyst for what is now Stratafolio.
Okay, well, so there's always a really good origin story to somebody who's been doing it one way. I'm sure you looked for other solutions. I mean, that would be the natural thing to do, right? It's like, I'm using a spreadsheet. Let me go find, some solution that will solve this problem for me. And it sounds like you maybe didn't find that thing out there. So what were you looking for that just didn't exist at the time?
Yeah, we were looking for something that did not require that replaced the spreadsheets that we were updating every single month. Because as commercial real estate investors, you want to know if your investment is working correctly, if it's performing as you want it to, and should you be buying more of a certain type of asset or should you be buying less of that. But having to redo the math every single month wasn't really a very smart way to grow our portfolio. And so that really just led to us looking for a solution, working with some local commercial real estate developers to come up with an initial concept.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, it makes me think back to, like as you know, we're both kind of in this QuickBooks space as well, because I know Stratafolio as a solution integrates with QuickBooks, and so a lot of the things that we do as a business kind of start with a QuickBooks context, and it just reminds me of like when QuickBooks itself was started. I believe it was Scott Cook, that the founder of Intuit, that was sitting at a table, and it's like he was trying to come up with a solution to personal finances, and I'm sure he was doing it in a paper checkbook, even before maybe spreadsheets were around. But that eventually became QuickBooks because, again, there was nothing in the market that was really user friendly. So I think it's great. You looked, you didn't find exactly what you needed, and so now it's like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to go build this thing. Okay, which is no easy task. So so you kind of talked about the inspiration behind it, right? Which is trying to get rid of spreadsheets, trying to get rid of maybe the manual processes and the manual tracking. Well, for folks that are listening in, hopefully that are maybe in that commercial property management space, I know that's a challenging industry, and it's not the same as residential property management. So maybe just for people who are listening that maybe don't understand the distinctions there, like what is it about commercial property management that's so challenging?
Right. Well, it really comes down to that tenant base and the leases that are signed. In a residential type scenario, those tenants have an annual lease. And the problems with a residential tenant are different than if you have a commercial tenant. That commercial tenant is going to sign a 3, 5, 10-year lease. And with that, there are pre-qualification things that'll happen beforehand that are different than the residential. But the other thing is there are activities with that commercial lease that you don't have on a residential lease. So, for instance, a commercial tenant, you will have an annual escalation or bump. Um, and it's easy to miss that bump. And we see it every day when we're working with clients where they have missed a tenant's lease escalation, sometimes for quite a long period of time. The other thing these tenants have to deal with is their triple net leases. So, those tenants will sign, they're not only paying their base rent, they're also paying additional rent, which is the common area maintenance expenses plus taxes and insurance. And so the complicating factor with that is that tenants are going to share their pro rata share plus other rules or lease agreements that were negotiated that could be different from tenant to tenant. And you have to do that CAM reconciliation process every single year, preferably in January. Um, but it's a time-consuming activity that you have to do every year. Plus, when you're talking to like lenders, when you're buying a new property, being able to pull together a rent roll really quickly and show that you have leases that are escalating every year, that's what those lenders want to see and need to be able to see.
Okay, so you've already thrown out some lingo, which is which is great. So rent roll,
Mhm.
CAM reconciliations, common area maintenance, right?
Maintenance. Yeah.
Where you're allocating certain things like maybe I don't know if they're like general electricity
Yeah.
or
Could be.
common
Yeah.
areas.
Parking. Yeah, I know you're in Texas, so um, big areas that you have to light in parking lots, landscaping year round that you have to take care of, cleaning of those parking lot areas, security, anything that tenants would share in common are common area expenses.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, so this is fun. So so how does your software, how does your solution address those problems? CAM reconciliations, rent rolls, escalations, all those types of things.
Mhm.
How does it, I mean, what, like, is it just do one part of that, or is it like multi-layered? Like, just kind of talk a little bit more about the solution.
Yeah, really it all begins with QuickBooks. So that the accounting of that property, that entity exists within QuickBooks. But those expenses that you are recovering are going to flow through from QuickBooks into Stratafolio. And so when we onboard a new client, we are building out the portfolio and the stratas within that portfolio. It's why we're called Stratafolio.
There you go.
Um, because we're building out the entity, then the assets that are within that entity, and the size of those assets, the building, the size of those buildings, the space that that tenant is taking up. And so we know exactly the size of the building, the size of the of the unit and the space the tenant is taking up, and the specific rules according to the lease. So those expenses flow into QuickBooks, flow to Stratafolio. We apply the pro rata share, and they do their budget versus actual. They can do it in one click.
Wow.
So
Okay.
what might have taken them, hours to do a single one, they can do it in seconds.
Okay. Well, you brought something up, and I'm just curious. So you mentioned like some of the expenses that are maybe getting put into QuickBooks and then they flow to
Mhm.
Stratafolio. Like, does somebody actually need QuickBooks to use your solution, or how does that work?
Yeah, they will still use QuickBooks.
Okay.
That is where the accounting exists. What we give them is that ability to consolidate their view across all of their company files. So most of our clients have one to 50 different QuickBooks company files. So they can see that consolidated view of their cash flow, of their debt, um, and then help with the individual CAM reconciliations for each of their tenants.
Okay. I've got to imagine it can get pretty complicated.
You
So,
can.
let's take a step back just a little bit because I'm curious, every industry that we've worked with, and we've worked with lots, has seen changes over time,
Mhm.
evolutions, cycles, that kind of stuff. Just from a big picture standpoint, in terms of commercial real estate, what kind of trends have you seen in the market? Like, are things that used to be managed and sold, 10 years ago no longer being, because I know there's like, even when COVID
Mhm.
happened, right, there was a big exodus from, big commercial
Yeah.
buildings and with everybody working at home. So how have you seen that played out?
Yeah, so we saw an influx into industrial warehouses because everybody was shopping online and getting their stuff that way. So
Hmm.
there was definitely an increase there. But the other thing we saw was we had already had a strong client base who had strip malls and retail type activities. And what we saw was an increase in that because no matter what, people still they're going to get their hair done, they're going to get their nails done, they're going to go buy groceries, they're going to that stuff is not going away. And so we see strip malls are a very popular asset class as well as industrial.
Okay. So, but it sounds like less so just the typical commercial office buildings, or is that coming back? Have you seen it coming back at all?
We still see office buildings. It just depends on where you're at. And we sell across the United States and Canada. And certain areas are still selling a lot of offices and there's they're still bringing in people to offices. Other So I wouldn't say it's gone away. There's probably some places it's doing better.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I'm gonna put myself in the shoes of maybe somebody that's thinking about this, not just just thinking
Mhm.
about your solution, but just thinking about investing and getting
Mhm.
into commercial property management or commercial property development. Like, what kind of things does your solution help me do,
Mhm.
in terms of growth, long term, value of my assets? How do you
Mhm.
help me in that regard?
Yeah, the first thing is we're making sure you collect all of the revenue that you have signed up to earn. So making sure you don't miss a lease escalation. And that shouldn't happen, but it happens almost. We have 100% return on investment from onboarding simply because of all of the missed lease escalations that we identify when we go through that process.
Mm,
So it happens often. Plus, if you are establishing a connection with your tenants, having doing that CAM reconciliation early in the year is so much better for your tenants because they don't like to get the surprise bill in June that is, here's what you owe me for last year for CAM reconciliation. And oh, by the way, I now need 6 months of catch up, and your new bill going forward for your additional rent is going to be this much. So it's going to improve your tenant satisfaction and improve that relationship as well. So it's really, and for you as the owner, that means you're collecting that cash faster. It should be a pass-through expense, but if you're waiting until June to do that activity, you have that those dollars are sitting elsewhere, not in your bank account.
that's interesting. It's not unlike, some of the clients that come to us where they really have a mess just in terms of their QuickBooks, and they've been neglecting cleaning it up, and they've been putting it
Mhm.
off and putting it off and
Yeah.
putting it off, or maybe they just haven't really worked through their systems and processes.
Mhm.
And there's the one guy that's the only guy that can do this one thing,
Mhm.
but he's been on vacation or he's had a family illness. And so these
Right.
things aren't happening. And so what tends to happen is I haven't invoiced my clients for 3 months.
Mhm.
I'm trying to catch up on my invoicing. Well, that's cash
Right.
flow. I mean, you
Right.
could go out of business if you don't invoice your
Right.
clients, right?
Yeah.
So I can imagine the same thing is true in this kind of space.
Mhm.
So yeah, So tell me, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you got a lot of different clients that are using your solution, but can you pick out or think about one or two just examples of how your solution has transformed their business or their operations using,
Mhm.
using Stratafolio?
Yeah, one of the things that we often see when we go through that onboarding process is our clients are not all of our clients are originally invoicing their tenants. Now, the reason they don't invoice their tenants is their tenant signed a contract, right? It's a legal document that says they owe this much every single month. And so, yes, they should pay that and they should pay the right amount every month. But it becomes really challenging to figure out what's been paid or what hasn't been paid if you haven't invoiced. And they still may be doing that wire transfer into your account, but it's hard to understand, okay, did they pay the right amount for May of 2025 or did they pay April of 2025? And so
Yeah.
I mean, it's just good bookkeeping hygiene to invoice so that you have something to match against. So that's number one. Number two is making sure that they are doing that CAM reconciliation early in the year because to protect their cash flow. So, and everyone on their team can do that process and will get the same result. You don't have to go to that one individual who has done it for the past 15 years and they had a spreadsheet that only they could operate. Now everyone can push the button and get the same result. And then you can have a conversation about, okay, do we want to adjust accordingly for some incident? Because it is a relationship type business. But that is transformative when you can invoice correctly, know exactly who hasn't paid, do CAM reconciliation fast, offer a tenant portal so your tenants can contact you and pay online. It's like you're making this full circle of a business relationship.
Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, those are the things that I would want,
Mhm.
as a business owner. I really am focused on cash flow. I'm going to make sure that I'm running my operations efficiently so I can scale but scale profitably.
Right.
Um, but I want to go back to something you mentioned at the very beginning, which is, and I'm curious how your solution helps, if it does. It's not uncommon for me to see a business owner that has their hands in 20 different things, right?
Hmm.
And I'm sure the same thing is true in commercial real estate, where it's like, well, I've got, this type of property and this type of property and this type of property and this type of property, and I'm doing it all, right?
Hmm.
Because somebody called me and said, "Hey, would you want to be part of this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Let me go part
Hmm.
of that." So now I found myself in 20 different things. How does your solution help me, as a owner of these investments and manager of these properties, identify what's working, what's not working, what I should be doing more of, what I should be doing less of?
Yeah. Yeah. So we provide this real time, especially if you have QuickBooks Online. It is truly real time. You make a change in QuickBooks, it shows up in Stratafolio. You can go asset class by asset class and figure out, okay, what am I making for cash flow on these properties? Is this working? Is this asset class working better than this asset class? And and you can see the NOI by entity, by asset class. So you have that data right there to do that analysis. And then you can dig in deeper and say, okay, well, let me go look at these 5 tenants that make up this property. What's going on there? And then you have all of the data readily available because maybe that lease that you signed, that rent per square foot is really under the market average. But instead of having to go pull out all of your leases and see, okay, what am I charging? That data exists within Stratafolio. So we're giving you this one-stop shop for all of your data so you can analyze, why am I doing better here than over here?
Okay, so that's helpful, but one of the things you just brought up, and again, it's like I don't know why my brain does these things. Sorry, for people who are listening, it's like my brain just goes certain places, and it's like, yes, it's in there, but how did it get in there in the first place? I mean, I've got to
Yeah.
imagine that getting lease data or all those things you're talking about into the software,
Mhm.
what is that an easy process? Is it hard? Is it somewhere in between because of all the variety and variables? Like how
Yeah.
hard is it or how easy is it to get everything in?
Yeah, so we have a full service onboarding team, and I do mean full service. So we go through a process of onboarding where we get access to our clients' leases, the amendments, the estoppels, their tenant COIs, their loan documents. And so we're going through and almost doing an audit of those materials as we are building out that portfolio. And so all of that information that I was just talking about now resides in a single location for that analysis to occur.
Okay. So it's not just like, hey, here's the solution. Good luck. You're
Right.
actually assisting them with getting it in.
Correct.
What about like, okay, I'm sitting here doing that with, you're helping me do
Mhm.
this, but now I run into a problem where like, well, this one's kind of different, and I got this deal with Bob and, Bob and I are friends. We've been going way back. And so we did it kind of differently. I mean, can you handle those kind of like weird off the ball kind of exceptions?
Yeah. So the thing about commercial real estate is it's not standard. So when we built the software, we built it so that it could be flexed in a lot of different ways. Now, the legal document is still the legal document. We're going to put in what is in that legal document, but we understand that tenant one tenant may have a entirely different lease than tenant two in that building, and we can account for those situations. So in one example would be a cap, a cam cap. So maybe you can't have an expense go above a certain level on a certain expense type for just this one tenant in that building. And our software accounts for those types of scenarios. So we can handle complexity that comes with those negotiations.
Okay. Well, what I think is also interesting about this is, i- and I've seen this in a couple different areas, but I want to go into it a little bit more with you. Like when you're in a position like you are to see lots and lots and lots of different companies doing
Mhm.
this type of stuff using your platform, I'm sure
Mhm.
you see a lot of like similarities, right? Everybody's
Mhm.
kind of doing this thing this way, and I'm sure you see the exact opposite too, which is like, why is this company doing it this way? This is like
Mhm.
not just stupid. I mean, it's silly. Like, why are you doing
Mhm.
it this way when everybody else in the world is doing it this way? Do you get to see kind of like that aggregate type of information so that you can help your clients like do it better?
We do. And as part of that onboarding experience, we will, if we see it, we say it. So if we see somebody, for instance, they are not charging for something that they could get covered in their CAM, we'll let them know because our goal is to make our clients, because we're looking at this from the owner operator standpoint, we want them to be as efficient and as profitable as possible. And so if we see that they're missing something, we'll say it. If we see that they're doing, some people will do CAM reconciliation on a monthly basis. It's not needed. It's extra effort that you just set up a budget for, and then every month that tenant then also has an expected amount that they're paying. They probably don't like that rent, that additional rent payment is jumping up and down each month. Just do it once at the beginning of the year, have a budget,
Yeah.
and then in early January, reconcile and adjust for the next year. So we see things like that, or um, people aren't invoicing, or they're still allowing checks to come in. So whenever we see processes that can be improved, the team will share, and they share their suggestions because they've seen a lot of bad practices. um, and we create all kinds of content based on what we see. So for instance, we actually, very early on, we created a best practice chart of accounts because what we saw was clients didn't really understand how to separate out their accounts between reimbursable and non-reimbursable accounts. And that's fundamental to CAM reconciliation. And it makes that bookkeeper's job so much easier as well, so that they know it's clearly, oh, this is a reimbursable expense. Because what you don't want at reconciliation time is gray area, because that makes CAM reconciliation very messy.
Okay, that I love it. I love it. So, um, so my question for you at this point is, I mean, it sounds like you've got a really good solution. You've been in this industry a long time. You're not just selling a solution. It sounds like at some level you're kind of like partnering with these
Yeah.
clients of yours to
Hmm.
help them be more successful. So if someone wants to use you guys as software or wants to reach out and connect and see how you can help them, how is the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, they can go on to stratafolio.com. There's all kinds of links to schedule a demo. They can look at a bunch of different videos and articles and guides that we've written to see if it is the best solution for that individual and that company.
Okay. And so that's
Folio,
stratafolio.com with the
correct.
F, not PH, right? It's like
Correct.
stratafolio.com. Okay, perfect. And I assume you're also on LinkedIn if somebody wants to
Yeah.
reach out and connect and go that way. Okay,
Hmm.
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being on the show. Really appreciate you coming and sharing your expertise. And
Hmm.
again, we love doing this because we know that when people are searching for solutions, the hardest part is just like vetting all these different options out there.
Hmm.
You know, who has time to like go try them all or test them
Right.
all, kick the tires on all, or get demos for all. And so we try to work with just like literally the best in class solutions. And Jerry, we really do feel like you've got one of those right here for commercial property management.
Thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
thanks for being on the show. And for those of you that are watching and listening, again, hope you enjoyed this. If you know somebody in commercial property management, commercial property development, investors that are doing that same kind of thing, please do get the word out. Let them know that there is a fantastic solution. And definitely reach out to Jerry. And if you didn't write all that stuff down, you're like, how do I get a hold of her? You can always reach out to us at Vark Solutions and we'll put you in touch. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. There is a Solution for That is produced by Vark Solutions. This episode was produced by Ashley White and Aaron Riley. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Watch the video version on youtube.com/There's a Solution for That. Or visit varcsolutions.com/podcast, where you'll find our entire podcast archive, as well as show notes, links to solution providers, and complete transcripts of every episode. If you love the podcast, please leave a review with your comments.